I've played through the first 4 hours of Avowed, and despite seeing a bunch of people online saying that it is very buggy and glitchy and all the rest of it, I've got to say I'm actually loving the experience with Avowed so far, and I wanted to make a video just kind of talking about that before we get into the live streams and the full-on reviews. So before you even get to the opening cutscene, you are greeted with this character customization. It's so detailed and in-depth. I am in love with this, and I think they did a fantastic job of putting it all together. I didn't want to spend too much time fine-tuning all of my character because I've got a lot of videos to make and things like that, but I will say that for anybody who is excited for character customization, you're gonna get pretty much all of your wishes fulfilled here. Then before the game even starts, you're given this absolutely stunning cutscene that breaks down everything that's been happening and why you're traveling to this distant land, so that when you actually arrive here and you're part of this whole shipwreck situation, you know exactly what is going on, and it minimizes the amount of dialogue and exposition that you have to go through before just diving straight into the game. You'll meet your first companion character right here. His name is Garrick, and he's going to walk you through the basics of the game and understanding what to do and how to do it. You'll get your first weapon and items, and then you'll be given the opportunity to explore this little beach area a little bit. You'll find that your weapons not only serve as a weapon to take down enemies, and by the way, the combat instantly feels incredible in this game, but you can also use weapons for breaking down fences and things like that and interacting with the environment to be able to unlock new areas. Within 5 minutes of playing the game, you're presented with an opportunity of saving this new character or leaving her to rot in a jail because no one's going to come and save her. And it's really interesting because Garrick, your little companion that you're already traveling with, he's advising you not to do it.
Envoy, I've tangled with Paradisant smugglers before. She'd say just about anything to get out of that cell. Her story's full of holes.
So it puts some pressure on you. It's not like an overwhelming sense to be the good guy. And then you start getting thrust into more combat-orientated situations. You get a bow and arrow, and you get to see what that experience is like. There are stealth mechanics where you have this incredibly overpowered attack that just one-hits enemies. I don't know if it lasts that way forever, but even the stealth mechanics felt great. It didn't feel like I was going to get detected by moving too fast or anything like that. And then Avowed meets the expectations that RPG players have and starts offering you rewards for exploring the local area. For instance, just in this tutorial area alone, there are a couple of waterfalls, and behind pretty much every single one is some kind of reward that will help set you up for the future. Then you unlock your first ability, and you can pick from 3, each have their own benefits. As somebody who's making a more ranger-orientated build, being able to lock my enemies in place for a couple of seconds seemed like a really good idea. Oh look, another waterfall. I wonder if there's a treasure behind this one. Yep. This game is so freaking cool. You're then able to try out the 2 styles of magic, I suppose you could say, and I say styles because the one just kind of does its own thing. It doesn't really use any essence, it's just stamina based, and you can flick a couple of things around and cast some spells. But then you have a book of spells. I will say that the spells are all incredibly fun to use. Just like every other weapon in this game, the combat feels amazing, but the magic in particular, it's so good. The animations are so clean, damage feels rewarding, and you do burn through a lot of essence, which is this game's equivalent of mana. But what makes this feel so unique is that you have 2 weapon loadouts, so you could just be using your wand and your spells, but then when you run out of essence, you just tap the Y button if you're playing on Xbox, and you switch over to a sword and shield or a bow and arrow. Then, after completing your first objective, and I'm trying to be vague because I don't want to spoil any main story or plot points here, you're transported to this new area, and at first it looks crazy and overwhelming, but you quickly get a sense of how everything works here, and it's not as big as the game makes it out to be. But from here, you say goodbye to the characters you met at the beginning, Garrick and the girl if you choose to save her, and then you meet a brand new companion. His name is Kai. He's got a couple of really unique elements to him that we'll get into in a little bit, and this area right here is just absolutely beautiful. My one complaint at this point in the game is that it doesn't have a photo mode, because I would have loved to get some really cool sweeping, panning shots, take a couple of photos and make better thumbnails for this video itself. But the visuals from this point onwards, they just get better. Every new area you traverse to, it's mind-blowing how stunning this game is. I started my first side quest, and you're introduced to a couple of new characters and mechanics, and this was a pretty simple one. Somebody's home had been taken over by these little monster things, but that description of a very short and simple quest isn't what actually happens. See, you have to traverse to this other area area, and it doesn't take long to get there, but there are so many stunning visuals along the way. There are little Easter eggs and areas you can go and explore. There's combat situations you can throw yourself into to practice different things that you unlock along the way. And again, I'm not going to spoil the quest for you, but there's so much more that meets the eye, and it isn't just a case of recovering a home. By the end of the quest, you're aware of so much more lore and types of characters that are scattered throughout the game, all because of this one super simple little adventure. And then you return to the area where you started the quest to wrap things up and figure out what you're going to do next, and all of a sudden there's a bunch of other exploration and hidden secrets and opportunities. And dude, you can freeze water by using an ice spell on the water. I have no idea what this is actually going to be used for, but it's a pretty cool mechanic, and as a fan of Zelda games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, it's great to see things like this being implemented from one game to the other. After an hour of just exploring this little area and getting distracted by absolutely everything, I figured I should probably, continue along the main quest. And the more I played this game, just traversing from this bit to the next main quest objective, I fell in love with this combat system. And it's not like the best that I've ever played in any game ever, but I can honestly say that it gives Skyrim a massive run for its money. And I think this is the big comparison throughout this video, and one that the community is constantly going to make. It's going to be Avowed versus Skyrim, which is better, which is the better open world RPG. And I don't think anything is ever going to beat Skyrim. Skyrim has a special place in the heart of so many people and so many fans of the RPG genre, but my god, does it scratch that itch. Everything from the sneaking mechanics to the various types of combat, whether it's physical or using a gun, which, we didn't have that in Skyrim, but that's fun as hell, or even double knives, great hammers, or as you've seen from the trailers, double wands. And yes, these are every bit as fun as the trailers make them out to be. I think that anybody who is a fan of those other RPGs that have dominated the genre and captured the hearts of so many gamers for such a long period of time, I think a lot of people are going to be very, very happy with this. And it doesn't have to be a debate, which is better, because this is remarkable so far in its own way. Even the second boss fight, as you continue through the main quest, again without getting into spoilers, it felt great. It felt challenging. You're still learning the basic mechanics, and you're trying to figure out if parrying is better than dodging, if a gun is better than a bow and arrow. And I liked that. It felt like I was being pushed and being made to consider these different choices and find a playstyle that worked well for me. And then you start getting into some of the weaker points of the game, which is the lore and this overarching story of what you're supposed to be doing. And I think for me, it felt a little bit disjointed because I didn't know anything about this game going into it. Maybe if I'd watched a couple more trailers, I would get it. But I feel like the whole time I've been playing the first couple of hours of the game, I'm kind of like catching up. I'm trying to figure out what my purpose is, because you are set out on a mission. You are this gifted character with an objective. And then 3 hours into the game, I'm just starting to be educated on unique items and the benefits that they have. And uniques are kind of like legendaries with special abilities. The first one I found was the Boots of the Bricklayer, which increased your carrying capacity and also gave you a little bit of a dodge distance increase. And just in case you're curious, you can pick these up from a Pargruin cache just outside of that area where you had the second boss fight. And then you have this whole other system that you're only just introduced to 3 hours into the game, and you're learning about setting up party camps and upgrading all of your stuff and cooking meals, and there's just so much that goes into this. But at no point did it ever feel overwhelming because they space it out really well. You are learning things hours and hours into the game, sure, but I much prefer that to being given 100 dialogue boxes as you progress through the tutorial. Then, as I decided it was probably time to wrap up my first 3-4 hours with the game, I started making my way to the next objective so I could wrap things up, and I came across this guy, this boss. His name is Octave the Firebrand. Just a word of caution, if you see this guy, don't engage in combat, not straight away. Level up your stuff first and then come back and get him. He puts up one hell of a fight, and he's got like 100 minions that just appear out of nowhere. Maybe he's got some cool stuff, but it's not worth the constant deaths. So I carried on, trying to make my way to the next objective, and I got sidetracked yet again, this time by a creepy spider cavern thing, and this was absolutely terrifying. When you first go into the cave, there's a couple of like little enemies and some cool little items you can find. Again, there are some uniques, and here's the location in case you want to check it out for yourself. In this one location, I found the Steel Garret Medallion and the Steel Garret Plate, which is the best piece of armor that I found so far in the game. But then I also found a couple of little spiders, which that's fine. I can deal with a couple of spiders. Then they started getting bigger, and I had to take these ones down, and then, oh my god, what in the abomination is this? Yeah, there's a giant spider boss in here. He wasn't actually that hard to take down, but he was terrifying. I just kind of stood in the corner and just tried taking him out with a pistol and a bow and arrow the whole time. I'm a coward. I know that, but it worked, so get wrecked. Finally, I reached the next objective, and this place, like, if you thought the landing was pretty and big, you have no idea what is in store for you when you enter these gates. Anyway, that's my first impression of Avowed. I know it's more of like a walkthrough, just summarized, but I wanted to give you the best kind of consensus of what the opening missions felt like and what you can expect when you dive into the game for the first time. Now, I'm not going to be that guy that tells you to go and buy the game, because it could just be a really good opening and then suddenly it starts deteriorating as you continue through the playthrough, and that I would feel bad for that. But I will say that this is one of the few games that I have played in many, many years that makes me feel alive and engaged with the story in a way that I haven't felt for a long time. If Avowed continues at this pace and it continues to deliver good story, great combat, characters that are interesting, and a world that you want to explore, I can easily see this being one of my favorite games of all time, or at least one of my favorite open world RPGs. It pulls elements from every other game and every other genre that you are accustomed to, and it puts them all into this big mixing pot and says, here you go. Have fun, and that makes me incredibly excited to play through the rest of Avowed. For now, stay tuned for more guides, tips, tricks, tutorials, secrets, and a bunch of other stuff. We're going to be making a bunch of content on this game and potentially playing through the whole thing, whether it's live or just standard videos. You let me know which you prefer. I'm just excited to spend more time in this world. I love your faces. Thank you so much for being here and supporting everything we do, and I'll catch you in the next one.